Hello and great to have you with us this Monday afternoon. I'm Paul Graney, sitting in for Kevin Hogan today. President Biden calls the surge at the border a crisis for the first time. But what does he plan to do about it? The president set to meet with a bipartisan group of lawmakers for the second time to discuss his infrastructure plan. He doesn't have the votes to pass the plan yet, so who's he trying to convince to get it through the Senate? And the president is pushing Texas to adopt his Affordable Care Act by cancelling a Medicaid waiver agreement set up under Trump. In a change of pace, the US and China say they'll set aside their differences in one policy area. They agreed to work together on climate change. That's despite their increasingly tense relations. President Biden, for the first time, calling the surge of migrants at the southern border a crisis. But he says he's still going to increase the number of refugees who can enter the United States, saying the current limit is actually making the crisis worse.
Biden described the recent surge of illegal immigrants along the U.S.-Mexico border as a crisis for the first time. Over the weekend, a reporter in Delaware asked Biden about his policy on refugee admissions. Biden said, "We're going to increase the number. The problem was that the refugee part was working on the crisis that ended up on the border with young people. We couldn't do two things at once, but now we are going to increase the number." On Friday, the White House released a memo saying it would keep Trump's 15,000 cap on refugees. But hours later, it reversed its decision after progressive lawmakers criticized the move. And Florida's Republican governor says Florida's lawsuit against Biden's immigration policies is trying to force him to follow the law. Governor DeSantis told Fox News, "You'll hear excuses for why they aren't enforcing immigration laws, like they're focusing on the most threats."
These are the most threatening folks. They are criminal, convicted aliens, and they're not even doing that. So you can't just totally default on your responsibility to enforce the law under the Constitution.
He said before Biden, illegal immigrants who committed crimes would serve their sentences, then ICE would send them back to their home countries. But now, because of Biden's immigration policy changes, DeSantis says ICE is effectively releasing them back into the United States. And Mexico's president said Sunday he might extend one of his key welfare programs to Central Americans to help curb immigration. The program aims to provide Mexicans with work and support the country's agriculture. But Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador said within 3 years it could create over 1 million jobs across Central America and Mexico. He said participants could earn a work visa for the United States after 3 years and eventually apply for U.S. citizenship after another 3 years. Lopez Obrador said he plans to propose the idea to Biden at the upcoming climate change summit.
And the president said to withhold health care funding from the state of Texas because he says a Trump-era agreement wasn't done properly. Texas doesn't use the Medicaid program. It has its own program for uninsured Americans, which the federal government financially supports. Or at least it did, until Biden canceled the agreement. MTD's Melina Wisecup has the details.
The Biden administration repealed a 10-year extension to Texas's Medicaid waiver, leaving the state under pressure to find a health care solution for uninsured Texans come September 2022. Texas Governor Greg Abbott claims it's a deliberate betrayal of uninsured Texans and that the Biden administration is taking away crucial resources for rural hospitals. Abbott says it took months to negotiate the agreement to begin with. The Medicaid waiver extension granted under Trump gives Texas over $11 billion per year to fund their own health care solutions for uninsured patients, since the state opted out of federal Medicaid. The Biden administration says they're rescinding it because the agreement didn't go through the full federal rulemaking process, and that Texas is welcome to submit another application. But some say it's a way to pressure Texas lawmakers to opt in to Biden's Affordable Care Act. Democratic State Representative Garnet Coleman called Biden's move an opportunity to work with the federal government to get the coverage expansion for Texans under the Affordable Care Act. Texas is one of 12 states that haven't joined the centralized health care program. And the Biden administration is pushing all 12 of these states to accept the federal Medicaid expansion. The Washington Post reported that Medicaid officials offered Texas a $3.9 billion funding boost if they opt in to the federal expansion. But for a deep red state like Texas, centralized health care is unappealing. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says he'll use every legal tool to regain the assistance Texans need. Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
And Biden's looking for Republicans to support his infrastructure bill. He met with a bipartisan group of lawmakers today for the second time, but still, no Republican senators have endorsed it so far.
President Biden is set to meet with a group of bipartisan Congress members Monday. They're expected to discuss infrastructure. Among the senators are Republicans Mitt Romney and John Hoeven, as well as a mix of House Democrats and Republicans. Biden is trying to build support for his multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure plan. He hopes to get Republican votes. He needs 10 Republican senators to override a filibuster. So far, no Republican senators have come out in favor of the plan. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell calls the bill a Trojan horse for increasing taxes, debt, and spending. GOP Senate Whip John Thune tells Fox News that only a small fraction of Biden's proposal is for infrastructure. He says Republicans will support building projects like roads and bridges. Democrats can try to pass a bill without Republicans using the Senate budget process. They need all 50 Democrats to do it. Democrat Senator Joe Manchin stands in the way. He says the spending needs to be paid for. Biden's plan calls for increasing corporate taxes from 21 to 28%. Manchin says he doesn't support that, meaning Biden may have to modify his plan to get the support he needs from either Manchin or Republicans.
Arizona is ready to start a major audit of over 2 million ballots from the 2020 presidential election. The state Senate is set to test voting machines, scan ballots, look for IT breaches, and perform a hand count. Senate President Karen Fann telling Just the News the audit process will begin this week. She says the process was held up because of resistance from the state's largest county. AZ Central reports Fann signed a contract to use a venue in Phoenix for the audit. She says there will be security and live streaming in the more than 20,000 square foot facility. The city of Norman, Oklahoma broke the law when it slashed its police budget during last year's Defund the Police movement. The state Supreme Court says the city council didn't tell the public it was about to vote to reduce the funding.
The Oklahoma Supreme Court rules that the Norman City Council violated the state's open meeting laws. It says the meeting announcement was deceptive. It didn't inform the public that the council was voting to defund the police. Council member Alexandra Scott proposed cutting $4.5 million from the police budget. The council settled on an $865,000 cut. Republican Rob Stanfridge represents Norman in the state's Senate. He released a statement applauding the court's ruling. He says the council held an all-night meeting where hours and hours were spent demonetizing the police. Bria Clark is the mayor of Norman. She says they cut the police budget to tackle systemic racism. The illegal vote took place during a movement to defund the police last summer. Advocates called for defunding the police amid protests and riots following the death of George Floyd in police custody. Experts say the defund police movement has caused crime to soar. Homicide and gun violence is up in most major U.S. cities. Last year saw the biggest jump in the murder rate in U.S. history. Standridge says despite the court's ruling, public safety is already damaged in Norman, and crime trends are up.
A new report says the U.S. Supreme Court has dramatically increased its support for religious freedom under the newest Chief Justice. It's apparently the most pro-religion court since the 1950s. NTD's Phil Zoe has more.
A new report from the University of Chicago found that the highest court in the land had a growing soft spot for religious freedom. From 1953 until John Roberts became Chief Justice, religious organizations won their cases 50% of the time. Now, under Roberts' court, they've won over 80% of the time. The report says most religious cases won today are by mainstream Christian organizations. Before, they say, marginalized or minority groups were favored, especially what they called dissenting Christian denominations. 93 cases and over 820 opinions from 31 justices were studied. According to the report, This pro-religion shift is largely because a majority of the justices are conservative and religiously devoted, which wasn't the case in the past.
A group of Floridians rallied last Friday in support of the governor's re-election in 2022. Supporters told NTD why they want DeSantis to serve another term.
Supporters gathered at an intersection in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, to support the re-election of Governor Ron DeSantis. He won the support of many locals for the way he handled the pandemic.
Done a great job for the state, making sure people that want to get vaccinated, and making sure that our businesses don't have to close. People can still work, and kids still can go to school.
Keep the businesses open. Let people decide if they want to wear masks. If they're afraid, they can wear masks.
DeSantis hasn't announced that he is running for re-election in 2022 yet, but supporters want him to serve another term. He's also seen as a potential presidential candidate in the near future.
And we are so grateful that we live in Florida. And Ron DeSantis, although he would be a great president, we still need him here. Maybe presidency will be in his future.
And I hope this time he gets a big win. But I hope he only stays in office for 2 years, because then he joins President Trump in 2024 as the vice president.
DeSantis' political committee raised more than $9 million in the first 3 months of 2021 for re-election preparation. Nikki Fried, the Democrat widely expected to run against DeSantis, raised about $285,000 this year. Lin Lin, NTD News.
And the U.S. and China agree on a new climate control pledge. They'll try to work together on what they call an urgent matter, despite heated tensions. NTD's Don Ma has more.
Despite souring tensions between the U.S. and China, the two sides have agreed to work together on climate control. The cooperation has been classified as urgent. They reached the agreement during talks in Shanghai last week. That's where U.S.'s climate envoy, John Kerry, met with his Chinese counterpart. The agreement comes as a joint statement. It reads that the two countries are committed to cooperating with each other and with other countries to tackle the climate crisis, which must be addressed with the seriousness and urgency that it demands. Kerry says the language in the statement is strong, but it seems he might have doubts on whether China will deliver on its promises. Kerry says he learned in diplomacy that you don't put your back on words, you put actions, adding that we all need to see what happens. But the outlook isn't looking good. In an interview with the Associated Press last Friday, Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Li Yucheng said that asking China to do more on climate control isn't realistic. He said, for a big country with 1.4 billion people, these goals are not easily delivered. China is currently the world's biggest carbon dioxide emitter. It aims to peak its emissions by 2030 and reach carbon neutrality by 2060, but the US and other countries are pushing China to achieve its goals earlier. A China affairs expert and professor at the University of Technology, Sydney, also echoes the concern. He tells us that he doesn't believe China will keep its word, saying even if Xi Jinping makes a promise in regards to China's carbon dioxide emissions, the Chinese Communist Party has always been unfaithful to its word in the international community, so his promises are not credible. China does have a history of breaking its word on agreements. It has yet to live up on its promises under last year's Phase 1 trade deal with the US. Under that deal, China pledged to purchase an additional $200 billion worth of U.S. goods and services between 2020 and 2021. That's compared to 2017 levels. So far, China has only lived up to a third of that pledge. President Biden will convene a global climate summit next week. Leaders of 40 countries will attend. It's still unknown if Chinese leader Xi Jinping will be there. Don Ma, NTD News.
Still to come this afternoon, a new milestone for space exploration. NASA reporting victory for its helicopter robot on Mars, which has successfully taken off and landed on the red planet's surface. And an urgent warning for treadmill users. Officials say Peloton's Tread Plus machine poses a danger for small children and pets. They say customers should stop using it immediately. Learn more in just a minute. NASA's miniature helicopter robot Ingenuity had a successful takeoff and landing on Mars. It's the first time humans have controlled an aircraft on another planet.
Altimeter data confirms that Ingenuity has performed its first flight.
Cheering at NASA on Monday as its little drone helicopter on Mars made a historic flight, marking the first time that humans have controlled an aircraft on an alien planet, and beaming back a single image. Taryn Bailey, an engineer on the project, streamed it live from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory headquarters in California. The helicopter, called Ingenuity, didn't fly for long. This was just a test flight. A camera on the Mars rover Perseverance, which was parked about 200 feet away, caught part of it on video. It went up 10 feet, hovered for 39 seconds, and landed again. But make no mistake, this is being compared to the Wright brothers' first flight back in 1903, which itself only lasted 12 seconds. In fact, NASA attached a tiny piece of the original Wright brothers flyer to the underside of Ingenuity before it was launched to Mars, a piece of history making history again.
The feds are urging owners of a certain treadmill to find another method for their workouts immediately. They're calling Peloton's Tread Plus machine dangerous for small children and pets. The Consumer Product Safety Commission says the message comes after multiple dangerous incidents with the machine, including a child's death. The Commission says it's aware of almost 40 accidents involving the treadmill. There have been reports of children becoming trapped, pinned, even pulled under the machine. For now, the Commission says it hasn't issued a voluntary recall because Peloton allegedly won't agree to corrective action. The company's called the agency's warning inaccurate, misleading. The Commission says it will investigate all known incidents with the machine and request that people report all incidents to the agency. Beachgoers in this Sunshine State witnessed an unplanned aircraft landing over the weekend, a small plane making an emergency landing into the waves there. It was all caught on video. The World War II era plane had a mechanical issue during the Cocoa Beach Air Show in Florida Saturday. The plane landing in the water right in front of the crowd. Event organizers saying rescue personnel were immediately on the scene, and don't worry, the pilot is okay. Aviation officials say the pilot was the only one in the aircraft. They also say they'll investigate the incident along with the National Transportation Safety Board. And 2 lawsuits have been filed against United Airlines. That's over the flight that lost an engine while flying over Colorado in February. The civil suits filed Friday allege that 2 of the passengers on board suffered significant trauma and distress during the incident. The attorney for the 2 passengers is asking for at least $50,000 in damages. In a press release, the plaintiff's attorney wrote the terror his clients experienced, quote, lasts a lifetime. United Airlines has declined to comment. 12 of Europe's top soccer clubs launched a breakaway Super League on Sunday. There's now sure to be a bitter battle for control over the game and its lucrative revenue.
A dozen of Europe's top-tier football clubs announced Sunday they have formed a breakaway league, a move set to create seismic repercussions for football's global landscape. All of the English Premier League's Big Six, including Manchester United and Liverpool, have signed on as founding members. They join Italy's AC Milan, Inter Milan, and Juventus, as well as Spain's Barcelona, Atletico, and Real Madrid. The plan was announced just one day before a planned meeting to redesign the format of the Champions League from 2024. The so-called Super League now sets up a rival to the Champions League and has drawn widespread backlash from football's global and European governing bodies, FIFA and UEFA. UEFA said it would ban any club involved in the breakaway from playing in its domestic league. UK and France's Prime Ministers Boris Johnson and Emmanuel Macron both also condemned the move. In a statement, the league said it plans to launch as soon as practicable. It said the founding clubs will be given more than $4 billion, quote, to support their infrastructure investment plans and to offset the impact of the global health crisis. A study last year by the European Club Association said the top football clubs were likely to sustain losses of more than $4.5 billion, given worldwide restrictions on sports. No clubs from Germany or France are associated with the new league yet, but the Super League said they're still looking for 3 more clubs to join as founding members.
Still to come this afternoon. Farmers in Malaysia grow the prized Japanese muskmelon. A combination of research and trial and error has sprouted some delicious fruit for eager consumers. Stay tuned to find out more.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need? Now you can sell your policy, even a term policy, for an immediate cash payment. Call Coventry Direct to learn more.
We thought we had planned carefully for our retirement.
But we quickly realized we needed a way to supplement our income.
Our friends sold their policy to help pay their medical bills. And that got me thinking. Maybe selling our policy could help with our retirement.
I was skeptical, so I did some research and called Coventry Direct. They explained life insurance is a valuable asset that can be sold.
We learned we could sell all of our policy or keep part of it with no future payments. Who knew? We sold our policy. Now we can relax and enjoy our retirement as we had planned.
If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may qualify to sell your policy. Don't cancel or let your policy lapse without finding out what it's worth. Visit CoventryDirect.com to find out if your policy qualifies, or call 1-800-509-8500. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
If you're like me, and I think it's actually most of us, then you're getting really fed up with the nonsense going on inside the banking system. I mean, we've worked hard our entire lives to retire comfortably. We just recovered from the crash of 2008, and it seems like it's about to happen all over again. Look at the too-big-to-fail banks. They're only getting bigger as the Fed hands them trillions of dollars daily, while simple folks like you and me, we're only getting the short end of the stick. That's why I'm glad I found this book called The Bank Failure Survival Guide. Give us a call, and we'll send you a free copy with no obligations whatsoever. Just one American to another, telling you about some options that you might not have considered. Call 866-239-2619 today for your free copy of the Bank Failure Survival Guide. That's 866-239-2619.
Welcome back. After 10 years of tweaking, 3 Malaysian farmers have perfected the right concoction of nutrients and nurture to successfully grow a special exotic fruit. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Japanese muskmelons are one of the world's most expensive fruits. After constant experimentation and trials, the farmers at Mono Farm in Malaysia are finally selling their prized luxury fruit.
Every single Japanese melon that you see in our farm is almost like a single art piece. This is one of the most important criteria and most difficult to maintain it. To make sure they have very nice appearance and acting, we have to make sure the nutrition, the watering and the fertilizer have to be very consistent and very precisely.
Say and his colleagues perform regular massages with a soft cloth or glove to enhance the melon's flavor. They also play classical music for the plants in the greenhouses, which they believe stimulates growth. Muskmelons are most suited to temperate climates, so growing them in the tropics was a challenge for Say and his team. They learned the cultivation process through several trips to Japanese farms and old-fashioned trial and error.
We are facing a lot of challenge, like very hot weathers, the composition of the nutrition, the technical know-how on how to grow this Japanese melon. Until recently, we find a right variety, right nutrients, right where to grow it.
As part of an event held on April 10th, Mono Farm opened its greenhouses to a few dozen customers. They were welcomed inside to select their muskmelon of choice. They sell for $40 each, about a third of the price of muskmelons imported from Japan. According to Mono staff, the top 200 melons have already sold out, mostly thanks to online sales. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Now we turn to the biochemistry of laughter. They say it's one of the best medicines. Now research agrees it can indeed boost your immune system.
We are often too tired or stressed out to indulge in a little laughter, but it has amazing health benefits.
Laughter can help relieve pain, bring greater happiness, and even increase immunity. Laughter does a number of things. It reduces the levels of stress hormones. It also increases the number of health-enhancing hormones such as endorphins. It increases the number of antibody-producing cells we have working for our immune system and enhances the overall effectiveness of T cells. This means a stronger immune system and fewer issues with stress. I'm referring to exhaustion, depression, insomnia, and weight gain. Dopamine regulates the reward and pleasure centers of the brain. Laughter, exercise, sunlight, and certain foods can all increase the release of dopamine in your brain's reward center. When dopamine levels are low, you lose your enthusiasm and zest for life. You begin to experience great difficulty completing tasks. This neurotransmitter is critical for motivation, interest, and the drive to achieve. We would not typically consider laughter important to well-being, but researchers are finding evidence that it is. Psychologists have found that being silly, losing yourself in the moment, and engaging in something pointless but pleasurable is essential to stress reduction, healthy relationships, and maintaining a sense of well-being. From this biochemical perspective, laughter is probably one of the most positive, easy, and healthiest things we can do for our life. It can provide us with a huge lift physically and emotionally. Laugh more and you can also lift the moods of those around you, reduce their stress levels, all of which will inevitably improve the quality of your interactions with them. Laughing, smiling, and enjoying one another is truly one of the best ways to diminish a negative, tough, or stressful situation. Laughter draws our focus away from anger, negativity, hopelessness, bitterness, and guilt like nothing else can. The act of laughing can bring you into the moment, which is something we all desperately need. Our rigid schedules often consume us and leave us constantly thinking about the next thing we need to do. Since our cultural norm is to juggle many demands of life at once, we're regularly running on high stress levels. But sometimes for our own well-being and future productivity, we need to forget about getting things done and just have a laugh.
That's all for now. Thank you.
We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.